So we're on to Unit 40, Teaching in a Specialist Area, and we're doing Learning Outcome 2 today, which is Understand the Aims and Structures of Key Qualifications and Learning Programs Available to Learners in a Specialist Area. So there's 3 assessment criteria. Now I've changed it up a little bit. I've put it in the slide, just so we can refer back to it when we want to. So 2.1 is describe the aims and structure of key qualifications in your own specialist area. 2.2 is describe the aims and structure of learning programs in your own specialist area. And 2.3 is explain how your own approach to planning and preparation for the delivery of a learning program in your own specialist area enables its aims to be met. So after that mouthful, on to 2.1, describe the aims and structures of key qualifications in own specialist area. So what are the aims and structures within your key qualifications for your specialist area? So just as a recap, a specialist area doesn't have to be you teaching healthcare or you teaching accountancy or maths or science. It can be the area that you work in. So for yourself, it's primary. For some others, it might be high school, further education, or adult education. So across the UK, there are actually 5 stages of education. You have early years, primary, secondary, further education, so FE, and higher education, HE. Education in the UK is compulsory from age 5, so it is reception age, so which is why a lot of parents will send their kids into nursery or will not. It's really up to them. And then 4 in Northern Ireland, so it's a little bit younger. And then it's up to 16. And I think, is it Sweden, if I remember? They don't actually have a, I might be wrong about the country, but there is a country that it's not compulsory to send your children to school until you're age 7. So that's there's quite a big gap there. Which I don't know. Maybe they've got a lot of different systems in place where they are getting some learning. Personally, I feel age 7 is a little bit too old to be going in and having education, but it could work, couldn't it? You never know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to. I always do this. I use examples, but then I actually forget the actual facts about it. So I need to start making notes. So further education is actually not compulsory, but it covers non-advanced education, which can be taken at further, so in education colleges and higher education institutes. So it also can be taken tertiary colleges or educational institutes. Now, tertiary colleges, I've put down the definition of what a tertiary college is, because it was something that I hadn't heard of before. So I thought, just in case. So tertiary colleges are actually responsible for all or most of the full and part-time non-advanced education for the post-16 age group in the areas that they serve. Now, from my understanding, I'm believing that a tertiary college or institute is a place where you will go and do apprenticeships. So maybe in plumbing, in engineering, that type of thing, mechanics.
Okay.
So these tertiary colleges will combine all the provision in one place, where in other areas it might be done in separate colleges or forms. So yeah, I think I am correct in understanding that is you're getting all of your learning practical and knowledge based in one area, rather than having to go to school and then going to a work placement, which is what we do in a lot of, especially the teaching assistant courses, where you did a couple of days placement and then a couple of days physically going in. So the 5th stage, HE, higher education, is where you're studying above and beyond GCSEs, A-levels, or their equivalent, depending on where you are. I think in Scotland it's called a national certificate. And this takes place in universities or higher education institutes and colleges. So that's a bit of a background on what sort of education we offer within the UK. So the primary stage, you'll know this, it covers Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2, nursery, juniors, and so you have your nursery up into Year 6.
Yeah.
Then the major goals. So what are the major goals? This is the part where we're talking about the aims and structures within this sector. So the major goals of a primary education is to achieve basic literacy and numeracy for all of the students. And again, is to put down a foundation for science and maths, along with some other subjects like art, design, tech, information technology. So it's to give it's just establish a foundation in all those, but to actually achieve basic knowledge within literacy and numeracy first and foremost. Now, the children that attend schools within England and Northern England, they're assessed at the end of Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. And in Wales, all the learners within the final year of the foundation phase and Key Stage 2, they're assessed through teacher assessments. Now, we do it in the form of assessment papers or tests and so on. With Wales, they're doing it through teacher assessments instead, so it's a little bit different.
Okay.
In secondary education, public provision of secondary education consists of a combination of different types of schools. So you've got comprehensive schools, which will admit pupils without any, they're not doing any tests, they're not having to sit any 11 pluses or any of those. They're just for the children that are in the locality. So normally they're feeder schools, like I've got a high school that's here that's got a primary school that's attached to it, and there's the local primaries that will go to it. So there's a lot of sister schools, as we could call them, where they work together. And they not comprehensive schools will normally coexist with like academic, what they're called, academies, not academics, academies and grammar schools as well. So then we have academies. Now these academies work slightly more different because they have a higher level of freedom. Within your school, are you an academy or are you a comprehensive school?
No, it's comprehensive at the moment. But planning to be academy.
Yeah. So there'll be quite a lot of changes going with the academy because you'll have more freedom on how you teach things and what sort of standards you're using to teach those. And hopefully pay will be better because they can set their own pay as well. So you never know, though. It's one of those things you can wish for, isn't it?
Well, you never know. Still, it all depends on the higher authorities.
Exactly, yes. But I've noticed that academies have a very slight edge, and it's not much of a difference, but they do pay ever so slightly better. But it's not something that you'd be like, whoa, I'm rolling in the cash, I've got so much extra money now. It's an ever so slight difference. From a comprehensive to an academy for employment wage-wise. Now, these academies, they do actually have more freedoms, so they can be quite innovative and they can raise standards, and they've got freedom from the local authority, so they're not controlled by the local authority. They set their own pay, they set their own conditions, they have a freedom of the delivery around the curriculum, so they can change the curriculum to suit them. They can change the length of their terms, so they can be longer terms or shorter terms. They can have longer or smaller school days. So there's quite a few things that can be, they've got freedom to do. So at the end of this stage of education, pupils will normally go for an external exam. So, you know, like GCSEs. That we do, and I've heard it so many times in GCSE when it came up with the General Certificate of Secondary Education. I'm like, well, I don't like that. Prefer GCSE instead. Too long. And then you've got the grades in England, Wales, Northern Ireland, and so on. So you really end up going for your qualifications. Now they don't just offer GCSEs anymore. It's been a while. My son's in year 11 now, but in year 8, I remember he had the options to, I think, go and do a BTEC as well. if you wanted to. So there's a few different qualifications.
In where?
In high school, yes. So some of them were being offered as a BTEC and some of them were being offered as a GCSE. So
Really?
yeah. I don't know if it was, but then my son's school is an academy, so it's different to what a comprehensive school would do. So I'm thinking that's the reason why, because I've not seen it elsewhere.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is BTEC not equal to bachelor's degree? Is it?
No. BTEC is not equivalent to that. It's quite similar to. It's more of a technical qualification.
Okay.
So BTEC it's just, it goes, there's a load of different courses in it. It's more like a skills-based qualification. So if you're not, it's good for students that might not be as academic, so that they can do something more skills-based. The BTECs that were being offered were things like in what we called in our early, in my school days as woodwork, but I think they started calling it, I can't remember the course name now, but yeah, it's more of a technical course.
Okay, because my children have got design and technology as their subject in their school.
Yeah, but that'll be, my son does design and technology as well, or computer science, computer design or something, but that's a GCSE. Yeah.
Okay, no, they don't have computer science or anything.
Oh,
So
don't
that's
they? So it must be, yeah, it must be a difference with an academy then, mustn't it?
well, they are in grammar school, both of them.
Oh,
So
very nice.
they are in they are in Queen Elizabeth. You might have heard QE.
I have, yes.
Yeah, so they don't have computer science. That's the biggest drawback I feel at today's time.
Yeah, computer science. My son is doing that at the moment, and it's quite nice actually. He's doing his mocks at the moment, and he said it was quite simple to do the mocks because they're only asking basic information on how computers work, and I don't understand it, but I probably would have failed it if I went to it. But yeah, no, it's nice that they have got these things, because I know when I was younger, we only had the option of doing IT, so information technology. So it's good that there's different things that are available.
Yeah, true.
So then you go on to higher education. So this is where you're looking at courses that have a higher level than a GCE or a GCSE or an A level, or in Scotland an SCE or national qualification. So you got all of these GNVQ, NVQ, level 3s. They can call it EdXL, which were formerly known as BTEC, so they might have changed the name since when I saw them a few years ago. So these higher educations will lead to postgraduate courses, which can lead to higher degrees, diplomas and certificates, undergraduate courses, like first degrees and so on, and for honours and ordinary degrees, and undergraduate courses. Now, this level 5 that you're doing is an equivalent to the second year in university. So if you were to go and do level 4 is equivalent to a first year in university. Level 5 diploma is a second year, and a level 6 diploma is equivalent to a bachelor's. So there are so many different ways that you can go and get your qualifications now, compared to what they were 20 years ago, or when I was in university. So many aspects and so much accessibility, which is really good now, because not everybody has the time or the affordability to be able to go in and spend thousands on degrees. So it's good that you can work your way around and still get the same equivalent. I just had a student speak to me today, and he's doing the level 5, and he said that he was showing his wife, who is a head teacher in a school. He was getting some assistance off her with his work on a particular thing he was stuck on, and he said the only thing that she said was, "This is more difficult than my degree that I did university." So even though you're going and doing a diploma, a lot of people will be mistaken and thinking, oh, that's the easy route. It's not necessarily easy. You're still putting in the same amount of graft as you would when you're going in to do a degree, just considerably cheaper.
Yeah.
So, how to answer this? So, on here, you need to identify the aims and structures of the qualifications in your own specialism. So, you're going to be talking about the national curriculum. So, what is the national curriculum? How do you implement it? Now, I put this little section in just to give you a bit of guidance on how to answer it. So, for example, for a primary setting, I would put down the aims are to provide pupils with an introduction to the essential knowledge they need to be educated citizens, along with having our learners follow the national curriculum structures, which for year 1 or year 2, year 3, whichever year you want to choose, which for year 1 are to have access to the core subjects English, maths and science, along with accessing other subjects such as physical education, art and design, and geography, amongst a few. Then you would, so that's a bit of an introduction. Then you would go on, say, how do you actually physically implement these? What do you do for English and maths? What do you do for comprehension when you're doing guided reading? All of those things. So for English, you could say that we do phonics lessons, guided reading. We've got a lot of one-to-one interventions. Maths, you have you split up the work into intervention groups or differentiated groups, how you're teaching it, and just go on from there and explain how do you actually implement it.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for 2.1?
No. So it's for basically English and maths. I should be giving examples.
Yeah, because that's the basic core topics that are really being taught in primary, aren't they? Everything else just supports that. So you can talk. So you can still talk about the other subjects as well, but just focus on how. Make sure you include English, maths, science, art and design, and IT, and all of those into it. That these are the core subjects, and we give other subjects such as, and list those, and then just say how you actually implement it, what you're doing to make sure that the aims of the national curriculum are being passed forward. So you talk about how you're testing them, assessing them, and so on with that.
So we are not like when you're saying identify the aims and structure. So
so you're telling me what the goals are for the national curriculum within your year. That's what it is really asking you to do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's a bit of a confusing question, but yeah, in a nutshell, it just wants to know, what are your goals? What's your specialism primary? What are your goals? You're going to talk about in year 1, our goals according to the national curriculum are to embed basic knowledge in English and maths, along with a fundamental base of science, and that we want, according to the national curriculum, we want our students to be educated citizens, and for them to follow the national curriculum structures, and this is how we do it. And then you go on, and you just go on to what you've probably used 1,000 times before in all of your other answers, how you're doing, what you're doing to implement it.
Okay.
Yep. So 2.2 is describe the aims and structures of learning programs in your own specialist area. So again, there are a lot of aims and structures, and I'll put some aims and structures from the national curriculum which are quite relevant. So one of their aims is to provide pupils with an introduction to essential knowledge that they need to be educated citizens, which is what we've more or less a sentence that we've used in that example there. It introduces pupils to be the best, to the best that has been taught. Is that meant to be thought and said? Yes. It introduces pupils to the best that has been taught and said. I thought there can't be a spelling word mistake within that, because I got that straight off the national curriculum. And it helps to give them an appreciation of human creativity and achievement. So that is one of their aims, to make sure our pupils are educated citizens, and for them to have, be creative and achieve the best that they can, so we can push them to their best. Then the other, one of the other aims is that the national curriculum is just one element in the education of every child. So there is time and space in the school day and in each week, term and year to range beyond the national curriculum specifications, meaning teach the national curriculum, but you can also embed a lot of other things in. So when you're teaching shapes within a maths, you still have the opportunity to embed minimum chord, and you still got that opportunity to cross-refer it to, say, Hand of Surprise or, Peter Pan or, Jack and the Beanstalk. There's a lot of things that you can teach about. You can teach about mental health, being kind to each other, things that you'll probably already be doing, or, so in a nutshell, what they're saying is that even though we've got the national curriculum and we've given you a guidance of what you can teach, you still have the opportunity to go above and beyond. You still can, teach them more than what is just here. Yeah. So the national curriculum is quite important for obviously primary and high school education, because it gives us an outline of what sort of core knowledge we need to be embedding within our students, what we as teachers can develop, how we can do it. So it gives us a basic of this is what we want you to teach. But as teachers, we still have that creativity around us where we can make it interesting and we can, tweak it and change it. So we're not stuck to say, okay, you need to teach adjectives today, and you have to do it in the same old boring way that we've told you, that we've listed it. I say you can make it fun. You can have activities and things, because they're telling you what to teach, but they're not telling you how to teach it. And that's one thing that you would develop with your school and your key members of staff that are within your year group, how you're actually going to do it. So there's still quite a lot of leeway even within this. So how does this actually translate in your own specialism? When you're describing aims and structures of learning programs, how does it relate to your primary school setting or your high school setting? So how do you do it? So to go for the aims and structures of learning programs, your main aims and structures are for you to be there to prepare students for their tests and exams. You're there to differentiate whatever content you're delivering to suit your learner. You're using those targets from the national curriculum, and you're using those timescales from the awarding bodies, and you're seeing if your student is meeting their expected targets. So you're continuously assessing them, and then you're adapting the work if you see that, oh no, they're struggling here, we need to do this, and so on. You're conducting termly assessments to assess their learning. So first you prepare them for the test, and then you're actually carrying them out. So the content you're teaching is you preparing them, making sure that they've got a good, sound basis and knowledge. You're differentiating your tests or your assessments according to learners' abilities. So I know when I used to be in high school, we'd have different sets of maths. We'd have set 1, set 2, set 3, depending on what our ability was. So even in that, you're automatically getting differentiated in what sort of paper you're going for at the end of the time. And if there is a need for it, if there's a genuine need for, like, if there's any special educational needs, or if, for example, somebody's broken their writing hand and they're not able to write as fast with their left hand, you can allow them extra time. You can do a lot of other things as well. You can do verbal exams. You can get a scribe, where if I was to break my hand, fingers crossed I don't, but if I was to break my hand, I'd have somebody else there that would I would dictate my answers to, and they would actually write it down for me. But that person would have to be a professional. It can't be somebody that the student knows, and it can't be someone who will just take over and write, which I could never be. If I was given a wrong answer, I just physically wouldn't be able to write it down, so I could never be a good scribe. So to answer 2.2, you just need to describe what your aims are for within your primary school. So really, if I was writing this now, I would put down that my aim within my primary school in the setting that if I was working in a year one setting, I would say my aim is to prepare the students for their phonics assessment, so the year one phonics assessment, and this is how I'm going to be doing it. And then I would talk about how we cater or adapt or differentiate the work, how we set assessments, make sure that we're doing interventions, how we use targets and timescales from the national curriculum or from any award. Like from now, I would say awarding body because I'm working in a different area. But how you use those. So in the national curriculum, it would say spend a week on this topic, 2 weeks on that topic. Then you try and stick to that type of basis. Anything that you're missing out on, you go back and you say, right, we actually need an extra week on this, or we need some extra time on that. But you're really just talking about what your aim is with your students and how you're preparing them to go for, exams or tests and so on with this.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Brilliant. So, on to 2.3, which is explain how your own approach to planning and preparation for the delivery of a learning program in your own specialist area enables its aims to be met. So you're quite good at this, where you actually talk about your own approach. You personalize it. So that's really good. Carry on personalizing it because it's about you. So you're just going to talk about what your approach is to planning and preparation when you're planning a delivery of a learning program. So you might not have had the experience where you're actually planning for a whole class of what you're going to teach for maths in the whole term. That's okay. You can still talk about how you prepare and plan for your interventions that you're doing or the sessions that you're taking as a whole class, because you are still doing some level of planning and preparation. So some approaches that I use when I'm planning and preparing, and also what a lot of people use as well, you're actually physically carrying out a plan. You're carrying out preparation work. You're creating a bank of ideas of what you want to do. You know what your learning objectives are. You know what your assessment criteria is, or we call it learning objectives and success criteria, SC, there you go. In primary schools we say success criteria, don't we? So you know what your success criteria is. That took me so long to come up with. So, and then you're using those and actually going forward, aren't you? Because you don't blindly just say, oh, I'm going to teach someone how to do pronouns today. You've got to have a particular aim when you're trying to teach pronouns, aren't you?
Yeah. You
do team working, so when you're getting prepared for your delivery, you might want to get your students in groups. You might want to do individual work. How are you going to do it? You're going to establish your learners' needs for their specific achievement goals. So you know that these learners need to go work towards this goal over here. These ones can go towards that. I've got a set of higher learners that are perfectly fine. I need to do something that's challenging for them. So you need to know exactly what their specific achievement goals are and work towards them. Seriously, planning can be such a headache sometimes because you're not just looking at a generic approach. It's very personalized now, isn't it? You can't really use the same approach for everyone. You can have a basic approach where you say, right, this is what I'm going to do, and that's it, and then you can go off it in like little branches and shoot out and say, right, for this group I'm doing this, for that one I'm going to do that, this one of the TAs will take them, I'll have the other group, and we'll work towards its worksheets. But even when you do it, even when you're differentiating in such a high level, the amount of work that goes into it, because you're not planning one worksheet, you might be planning 4 different worksheets. Yeah, with those 4 different worksheets, you might have to plan 4 different activities. For maths, to do number bonds up to 10, you might say, oh, I'm going to use counters. For the older children, you'd be like, right, they're quite good at adding, so I'm going to use those 8-sided dice where they can add up to 20 or up to 30, and then, okay, they're quite good at these adding up to 20 and 30. I'm going to give them 3 sets of dice so that they can shake them and whatever they land on. So you have to really think about how you're going to challenge them and engage them. So there's a couple of examples of how you can do this. So you can do teacher-centered and learner-centered teaching and learning. So it can be where you're physically standing there and you're giving them instructions, you're getting a learner to come up, or you're getting them to, demonstrate what they're doing. You can have blended learning. You can do a little bit of that. Blended learning for online is easier to explain because we're coming online, you're going off, doing a bit of self-study, you might listen to a recording, you'll do some assignment, then you'll come back. For children, it might be slightly different. The most simplest way I can think of blended learning for the young ones is when you're using a little bit of the projector, you're showing them a video, you're talking to them a little bit, they're doing a bit of group work, then they're going off and doing independent activities. So that could be classed as blended learning as well. Bite-sized chunks, make it small and simple. Clear and appropriate subject or subject specialist aims. So make sure that whatever you're trying to teach is clear and it's appropriate, and that you're not going off track, which is very easy to do, especially for me. Because you see one thing and you think, oh, that looks good, and you go somewhere else. It's just, yeah. I need to keep myself on track as well. You've got to make sure that you're using the right type of approaches for students. Now, when you're doing face-to-face learning, it's so easier to judge. Are these students engaged? Are they listening to me? Are they paying attention? Or can I get their attention back? If you're doing an online-based learning, that's completely different. Teaching children and teaching adults is also another story. I found that my adults are more engaged than my student children, younger students, because the adults actually physically want to be there. Most of the time they've paid a lot of money to be there as well. So there can be a lot more engagement on that side. There'll be a lot more questions because they're older, aren't they? With children, sometimes they just doze off, and children do, don't they? Yeah. Then using your specialist resources or your assessment activities. So you just got to make sure you've got the right type of resources available. So planning is such a pain that you're not just looking at all these different activities you do. You've got to make sure, do I have these dice? Do I have enough counters for these 10 children? Have I got enough glue if we want to stick things in? Or where's my scissors? The amount of time I used to go classroom to classroom searching for a stapler, or trying to find a roll of sellotape because they'd all disappeared from the stockroom. Simple things like that can be such a pain when you're trying to get your students to just put their work into their books and get on with it. The teeny things sometimes can be a problem. So, to answer 2.3, you just need to explain what approaches you use. So when you're doing your planning and you're preparing, you're thinking about your class teachers have said to you, Geeta, I want you to do these maths lessons every week. How are you preparing it? She'll probably have given you a bit of a guidance on what needs to be taught. Then you need to go ahead and tweak it. You might want to talk about how you plan your interventions when you see there's any gaps in learning. So very, very, very personalized. Talk about you. Don't make it generic. And just explain what you do. And I'm pretty sure you've done something similar to this earlier as well, but it's more focused on planning and preparation now. Okay. So here, if I was doing this, I've just got a few sentences that might help. So I would put something down like my approach to planning and preparation, and then I would talk about what my approach is. Then I would say I have a variety of different delivery methods, and I'd say what my delivery methods are: verbal, videos, group work, role play. And then I would say I ensure that I plan sessions in advance so that I am aware of what I need to teach and I'm able to research anything that could give further explanations. And then obviously we talk about making sure that you've got the right resources. And then you'd say this also enables me to differentiate worksheets, simplify wording, conduct interventions, and so on. Yeah. So in a nutshell, expand this.
Okay. Cool.
Going to, there you go.